We just got a new Superman movie, so it's time to rank all of the live-action Superman movies and serials from the worst to the best.
Let's do it, Cronkite.
Before I hop into the ranking, keep in mind this is just my opinion. Share how you'd rank these movies and serials in the comments section down below. And if you haven't seen the serials or even some of the movies, you don't have to rank them, just rank the ones you've seen. And let's hop right into it. Coming in last place is Justice League 2017, the one that was released in theaters. Zack Snyder was the original director for this movie, and he had a vision. He wanted this to be 4 hours long, but the studio had a bunch of interference. But due to the unfortunate death of his daughter, he had to step down, and they replaced him with Joss Whedon. And so basically, they used an hour of the roughly 4-hour footage they had then of Zack Snyder's work and combined it with an hour of reshoots from Joss Whedon. And their styles are not compatible at all. Joss Whedon leans more into comedy, Zack Snyder tries to be more serious, and even the lighting and that stuff is much different in his shots, so they had to digitally mess it up. Upon that, for the reshoots, Henry Cavill had a mustache because he was filming Mission Impossible, and due to the contract, he wasn't allowed to shave it, so they had to use VFX to take it off, and it looks horrendous.
What's that? What's that, brother?
And just all the plot beats here are rushed because the studio demanded this movie be under 2 hours, so this is one of the worst superhero movies of all time. I don't even think I can call it a movie. This is an absolute disgrace. Coming in at number 12 is the 1948 Superman serial, the original live-action appearance of Superman. And if you don't know, basically serials were kind of like TV shows, but they were played in theaters back in the day. Like an episode would be in between the movies at a double feature. And basically the first episode or two of this is like Superman's origin on Krypton and then him growing up and becoming Superman. And then the rest of it is just him fighting crime. And for what it is, it's definitely interesting to see. There's some novelty to seeing this original version of Superman in live action. None of the special effects hold up at all. It's pretty goofy, but I do think the cast here is quite charming, and I just find it to be entertaining because you're not really watching it to take it super seriously. You're just watching it as a piece of history. Now, at the same time, they probably could have done a little bit more stuff with this by not having the villain be some spider lady with an evil web, which they reused that villain in the 1960s Batman TV show. And you can clearly tell it's low budget. It's not anything great, but as I said, as a piece of history, it's interesting. Coming in at number 11 is Superman 4 Quest for Peace. And this is a movie that really suffered from a low budget. And out of the 4 Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, even though this came out 9 years after the first one, this easily has the worst VFX. They reuse the exact same shot of Superman flying so many times in this movie. It is so crazy. And just the plot throughout here is rushed. All the plot beats are copied off of the first 2 Superman movies, but worse. What they do with Lex Luthor in this movie and him making this nuclear man guy that fights Superman, it's super goofy. And just from beginning to end, this is pretty much a disaster. But it is pretty entertaining to watch. There is some fun to be had here with Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman. They're great actors. They're great in their roles. But at the end of the day, this movie is pretty pointless. Coming in at number 10 is Superman 3. I put it above Superman 4 because this one actually was able to have a story that flows together nicely. What they were going for, they did pretty well. It really only feels rushed, like in the final battle where everything escalates with these weird robot computers or whatever. But what they were going for here was a slapstick comedy that has Superman as one of the main characters.
What?
And the main character is Richard Pryor, who was a very funny guy. I really enjoy his performance. I mean, I find plenty of enjoyment from this movie. But at the end of the day, I don't watch a Superman movie to watch slapstick comedy. I will say, though, there are some interesting things they do here with an evil version of Superman, which Christopher Reeve did a good job playing. And even having Lana Lang in here was kind of adding to this story a little bit. But there was just so much goofy stuff in this movie. It was a bunch of weird decisions. And even the villain is pretty underwhelming. It's an off-brand version of Lex Luthor because they couldn't get Gene Hackman in this movie. But as I was saying, it's fun. There's some fun action here and there. It's not like it's unwatchable or anything like that. Coming in at number 9 is Superman and the Mole Men. And if you don't know, this was a film that was released in 1951. And it's kind of weird because this does not take place in Metropolis. It takes place in this small town where Clark Kent and Lois Lane go because they're investigating something so they can make a story. And what they're investigating is kind of the town drilling into the earth, and they get to the center of the earth or whatever. They get really far down and then these mole men pop out. And then the whole town is scared of the mole men and wants to kill them. But Superman teaches them the timeless lesson of don't judge a book by its cover. And for what it is, I really enjoyed George Reeves in this role. This version of Superman is just really underrated. And I mean, when it comes to the special effects and even the locations they shot at, like, it's all clearly low budget. It's not anything that special. but I just find this to be a super wholesome movie. Coming in at number 8 is Superman Returns, and this is a weird movie that I feel like should have been way better than it was, where this was the first Superman movie in like 20 years, and so obviously it had a new cast, but instead of just being a reboot or something like that, they wanted to continue the storylines of the first two Christopher Reeve movies while ignoring the events of 3 and 4, and I feel like that was kind of unnecessary. I think they could have just like made a new version of Superman. But regardless, I do think Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor is actually great. He's my favorite part of the movie.
Come on, let me hear you say it just once. Come on.
Superman will never.
He's very underrated, a little bit different from the Gene Hackman version, which it's supposed to be the same version. And as for Brandon Routh as Superman, he gave a great performance, but the characterization felt off, where he was spying on Lois and her new husband and their son, but it's later revealed that it's actually Superman's son. But just the central narrative of the movie with that whole thing, and then Lex Luthor wanting to get land, it just seems a little bit underwhelming. And aside from a few action sequences, this movie isn't as memorable as you would think. And so this is a movie that I want to like more than I do, because like visually it's very good, but just when it comes to the basic story and most of the characters aside from Lex Luthor, I just don't find it too interesting. Coming in at number 7 is Atom Man vs. Superman. This was a sequel to the original serial, where they actually had Lex Luthor in this one, which he was a huge upgrade from the Spider Lady. And I think when it comes to the action and special effects and that kind of stuff, the budget felt bigger with this one. I don't know how much bigger it actually was. The cast is still charming, it's very entertaining. Of course, with these serials, they do get a little bit repetitive from episode to episode, but hey, I think it's pretty good. I think it's an improvement over the first one, and it's just awesome that this was the first live action appearance of Lex Luthor, who by the way was played by the same actor who was the first Commissioner Gordon in live action. Now that's an interesting fact that will knock your socks off. Coming in at number 6 is the newest Superman movie, Superman. And to put it simply, this movie did not disappoint me severely, but it also didn't like subvert my expectations. I don't think it's one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, but for what it's going for, it is pretty good. James Gunn brings in a unique style, which does lean more into comedy, but at least the jokes actually land. Visually, it's very interesting to look at. It's just a very comic booky film where they decided to have some heroes as the side characters, so Superman is not the only hero in this one. And so this just brings a lot of new stuff to the table, and I think David Cornsweet is a great version of Superman. He probably is a little bit too hot-headed. He could be more stoic.
Where's the dog? Stop it! Stop! Sit! I want to represent.
But I still found him to be pretty good, and obviously Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor was a standout here. Possibly the best version of Lex Luthor throughout these different movies over the decades. And so this is a movie where it's very fast-paced, you get a bunch of action, but it's also heartfelt, it's a ton of fun. It just doesn't justify ending the Snyderverse. Coming in at number 5 is Superman the movie from 1978, and when this came out, I think it had like the highest budget for any film ever up to that point. And before this movie, superhero movies weren't really blockbusters. That was kind of a risk they took, but I mean, hey, it paid off. People loved the movie, and for me personally, it's not like one of my absolute favorites, but I do really respect it and I really enjoy it. The whole origin on Krypton and then Superman growing up, that whole portion of the movie is probably the best part. Once you get to the middle of the movie, it's kind of just like a compilation of Superman saving the day, and then Lex Luthor's plans about bombing California or whatever. It's a little bit over the top, a little bit goofy, but still, you get a great performance from Christopher Reeve, probably the best Superman in live action. He nails the Superman and Clark Kent personality perfectly. Of course, Lois Lane, Perry White, and Jimmy Olsen are all great in this. And Gene Hackman's performance as Lex Luthor in here was just phenomenal, even though I wasn't a huge fan of his evil scheme. And so this is probably the most influential superhero movie of all time. It really set the standard for superhero blockbusters. Coming in at number 4 is Superman 2. And this takes everything I liked about the first Superman movie and just kind of expands on it, where you have the Kryptonian villains, Zod and his goons, and you have Lex Luthor in here as well, but he's used more to manipulate people and he's not really an actual physical threat. And so I like that a lot better, what they do with the villains in here. It's nice to see Superman actually meet his match with people that can kill him. That just raises the stakes. Likewise, this movie also really dives into what it takes to be Superman, how he feels. He has to contemplate whether or not he actually wants to stay Superman or lose his powers and be mortal, because he wants to be with Lois Lane, and I think their romance in this movie is peak. And so just from beginning to end, there's a lot of fun to be had here. The performances are great, but there's one big problem with this movie that made me knock it down a couple spots, and that is the fact that we have two versions of the movie, the theatrically released version and the Donner cut. And if you don't know the history behind these two versions of the movie, let's just say it's complicated. Basically, both versions have their pros and cons. There's like not a definitive cut, which by the way, if you like combine the best parts of each, you could make a definitive cut. Does anyone want to pirate the movie so we can get one? Because we were robbed of a perfect movie here. We just have two versions of it that are kind of scuffed. Coming in at number 3 is Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. I know a lot of people hate this movie because their attention spans are short. But as for me, I think this is a broken hero story at its finest, where Batman has a reason to hate Superman and Superman has a reason to hate Batman. There's so many controversies surrounding Superman. He wants to gain people's trust. And then, of course, Batman lost trust for everyone. And, of course, there is some stuff in here that can feel a bit rushed, like them setting up the Justice League movie. But honestly, if you watch the Ultimate Edition that's like 30 minutes longer, it has all those deleted scenes, I don't think it's really much of a problem there. Which, by the way, it's a good time to mention now that we're in the Zack Snyder movies. He does a great job with the visuals. The cinematography, the costume design in his movies, everything about it is just unmatched. And yes, I understand that the story matters too. And the story's good. A lot of people don't seem to like this version of Lex Luthor, and I think they misunderstand what they were going for here with a younger version of him. We never really got to see much more of him, but you could tell they were kind of setting up a more mature version later.
The good doctors at Arkham helped me find some much needed clarity.
Coming in at number 2 is Man of Steel, and I thought this was a great origin story for Superman in the 21st century, where of course you had Zack Snyder directing this, but you also have David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan working on the story, and they were able to craft this origin story for Superman in a non-linear fashion, which is a very underrated way of filmmaking. And just from beginning to end, you're invested in these characters. The action, the visuals, all of it's great. I think Zod in this movie is just an absolutely phenomenal villain. Amazing performance from Michael Shannon. Sure, it's slow paced compared to like the new Superman movie, which is brain rot compared to this. But I mean, it's not a movie that's trying to just target little kids. It's trying to be for a mature audience. And it just does a great job of bringing new stuff to the table when it comes to Superman. But coming in at number 1 is Zack Snyder's Justice League, the real version of the Justice League movie. Now, some people might say 4 hours is too long for a movie, but tell that to Lord of the Rings fans and see what happens. Aside from even Superman, all the characters in this movie are great. There's some great character development, and this is overall an epic story where the stakes are just super high. And basically, take what I said about the other Zack Snyder movies and apply it here, but on steroids when it comes to his visuals, his storytelling. It is just so good, and I think this has the most emotional moments out of his 3 DCEU films. And I mean, yeah, as I was saying, when you have a 4-hour movie, it's much better for character development. You get to take time to understand these characters, but at no point do I ever find this movie boring. This movie is just an absolute masterpiece. It's a shame we did not get more Justice League movies with this cast. But overall, that was my ranking of all the live-action Superman films and serials. Let me know in the comments how you would rank them. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.